Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 12 waiver wire pickups for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going over some running backs, wide receivers, as well as tight ends that I believe you guys should be looking to pick up off the waiver wire right now. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 12 waiver wire ads. We begin at the running back position, headlined by Devonta Freeman, running back of the Baltimore Ravens this week, going up against the Cleveland Browns at home in Baltimore. Now, Latavius Murray returns last week up against the Chicago Bears, and everyone is starting to panic about Devonta Freeman because, hey, earlier on in the season, while there was still confusion at the running back position, Latavius Murray was the guy. So now is Latavius Murray going to take back his job? So people started to panic. People started to panic cut Devonta Freeman off of their team. I've seen in a bunch of leagues that people release Devonta Freeman. So I believe that Devonta Freeman is the clear number one running back pickup of the week, because Devonta Freeman, even with Latavius Murray back, is still the lead running back on the team. At week number 11, up against the Chicago Bears, Devonta Freeman had 16 rushes for 49 yards, as well as having a touchdown in that game, as well as having 6 receptions on 6 targets for 31 yards. As long as Devonta Freeman is able to have a strong stranglehold over this offense in terms of the running back position, as he has had over the last bunch of weeks, I really do believe that Devonta Freeman has top 12 running back value week in and week out, especially with how effective the rushing game is in Baltimore. Now, last week, obviously, that game was a little different up against the Chicago Bears because they didn't have Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson was sick. They also didn't have Hollywood Brown, but I don't think that's as much of an impact. Obviously, Hollywood Brown doesn't have as much of an impact on the offense as Lamar Jackson. So I believe when Lamar Jackson returns this week up against the Cleveland Browns, I believe that we are still going to continue to see Devonta Freeman as the lead back on the team. And if someone dropped him in your league, or maybe you are in a shallower league, meaning there are less people in your league, maybe you're in a smaller league, then it should be very easy to find Devonta Freeman. So if Devonta Freeman is available in your league, I believe you need to pick him up. Next running back to discuss here, we're kind of going to put running back 2 and 3 on my waiver wire rankings of the week together because they're on the exact same team. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I believe it is a true coin flip on which one of these running backs will have the value in this Jets offense. So first running back to discuss here is Ty Johnson, running back of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the Houston Texans this week in Houston. Michael Carter suffers a low-grade high ankle sprain up against the Miami Dolphins last week that will have him sidelined for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now we must kind of determine who is going to be the benefactor of this injury. Is it going to be Ty Johnson? Is it going to be Tevin Coleman? Or is it going to be LaMichael Pirine? Now, in today's video, we are not going to be discussing LaMichael Pirine because I believe he's kind of the outcast when compared to Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. And for that exact reason, that's why LaMichael Pirine will probably be the running back that we should have fucking added. And in reality, Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman aren't going to do anything. But that is not what I assume is going to happen. That's just what probably will end up happening because, hey, it is the Jets. So last week up against the Miami Dolphins, Ty Johnson had 1 rush for 5 yards, as well as 1 reception on 1 target for 8 yards. Tevin Coleman on the same team last week up against the Miami Dolphins, 5 rushes for 16 yards, as well as 1 reception on 1 target for 2 yards. Based upon what I've seen from the Jets this season, when Michael Carter was not the lead back on the team, was that Ty Johnson is the better running back than Tevin Coleman. The eye test tells me that Ty Johnson should be the running back that you are looking to add out of this committee system in New York for the Jets, because I believe with Michael Carter gone, this is not necessarily going to be just Ty Johnson's backfield. It's not necessarily going to be just Tevin Coleman's backfield. And if it somehow is LaMichael Pirine getting a majority of the touches on the team, it's not going to be just him. They are going to look to utilize a committee system like they were running earlier on in the season before Michael Carter ended up taking over. So again, I really do believe that this is a true true coin flip, that it is very up in the air which running back will end up being the benefactor of this Michael Carter injury. So my best guess, again, is Ty Johnson, because I think he looks better than Tevin Coleman, so that's why I have Ty Johnson ranked ahead of Tevin Coleman on the waiver wire rankings. Let me know down below who you guys would prefer to add, Ty Johnson or Tevin Coleman. Next running back to discuss in today's video is Alex Collins, running back of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the Washington football team this week in Washington. Chris Carson is done for the remainder of the season with a neck injury, so Alex Collins is going to be the number one running back on the team going forward. In week number 11 up against the Arizona Cardinals, he, along with basically the whole Seattle Seahawks offense, and since Russell Wilson returned, the whole Seattle Seahawks offense has just been limp dick. He had 10 rushes for 36 yards in that game. DJ Dallas ends up scoring in that game, not Alex Collins. So that will have a lot of people very worried about Alex Collins, but I believe that Collins is still the lead back on the team, and I don't think that DJ Dallas is all that much of a concern. The biggest concern with Alex Collins has to do with Russell Wilson, because I continue to kind of stand up, or sit down, I guess, in my chair, and keep banging the drum about how, hey, I think that Russell Wilson isn't 100% ready. I don't think that he should have came back when he did. I think he came back a little bit too early, and I think that is hampering the Seattle Seahawks offense. At the end of the day, though, at the running back position, where it is so hard to find value off of the waiver wire, I'm definitely going to be looking to pick up Alex Collins, because he's still the number one running back on a team that could get better down the stretch of the season. And if things don't get better for the Seattle Seahawks offense, I would not be surprised at all if the gum-chewing coach Pete Carroll gets fired. It seems like that's where we're at this season with the Seattle Seahawks offense. I don't know if you guys believe that with me, that maybe Pete Carroll could end up getting fired. Things aren't looking great in Seattle, but again, it is very hard to find the lead running back on any team off the waiver wire, so that's why Alex Collins is a part of today's video. And the final running back to discuss before we pivot into the wide receiver position is Rex Burkhead, running back of the Houston Texans, going up against the Jumbo Jets this week. In week number 11, up against the Tennessee Titans, he had 18 carries for 40 yards. And somehow in that game, the Texans beat the fucking Titans. The NFL this season seems about as open as it has ever felt in my life. It seems like there is no really good team, maybe the Buccaneers, but besides that, it seems like it is just a revolving door, especially in the AFC. Like, is the best team the Titans? Maybe not. Is the best team the Bills? Maybe not. Things are very up in the air, and that makes this season very interesting. But with Rex Burkhead, David Johnson just has not looked good. Last week, 13 carries for 18 fucking yards. He also had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 16 yards. David Johnson is about as useful in terms of fantasy football and for the Houston Texans as a used condom. So there's no real reason for them to give David Johnson a high workload, and I think they're going to pivot to Rex Burkhead. What gives me even more confidence in this is that they just released Philip Lindsay. Why, you might ask? I have no idea. I have zero idea. I think that Philip Lindsay has the potential, or had the potential, to be the best running back on the team. But with David Johnson playing like dog shit, with Philip Lindsay gone, it is entirely possible that Rex Burkhead gets a stranglehold over the Houston Texans offense. Now, again, is having the number one running back on the Houston Texans amazing? Of course not, but it is still very hard to find that running back that is the number one, the lead back on their team on the waiver wire. So that's why you need to be picking up Rex Burkhead, which is exactly why you also want to be picking up Mr. Alex Collins. But before we could pivot into the wide receiver position, I would like to ask that if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would greatly appreciate that. So now we're going to go ahead and pivot to the wide receiver position. Beginning with Michael Gallup, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys. One wide receiver that I did not end up including in this list is Elijah Moore. I think that Elijah Moore has been rapidly added over the last couple of weeks, and I don't think he's going to be available in a majority of leagues. But in my opinion, if he is available, he should be the number one waiver wire add. This guy has played well with Mike White. He's played well with Josh Johnson, and he's played well with cool Joe Flacco last week up against the Miami Dolphins. So he could do it with any quarterback. When Zach Wilson returns, I assume Elijah Moore will play quite well. So Elijah Moore would be my number one waiver wire add at the wide wide receiver position if he is available in your league. So the number one, though, in this video is Michael Gallup, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving. Amari Cooper is out this week, and CeeDee Lamb's health is up in the air with that concussion. My best guess is, since the game is on Thursday, on Thanksgiving, just a couple days from now, my assumption is that CeeDee Lamb doesn't play. But I don't think that his health really plays that much into the equation of wanting to pick up Michael Gallup, because I think Michael Gallup will have value this week, whether he's the wide receiver number 1 in targets on the team, or if he's the number 2 behind CeeDee Lamb in week number 11 up against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 5 receptions on 10 targets for 44 yards. Now, last week, the whole universe, every single person who was watching football was fucking hoodwinked by the Dallas Cowboys versus the Kansas City Chiefs. People were talking up this game like it was the Rams versus the Chiefs from a couple of years ago, where there was 7,000 points scored. Everyone's thinking, oh, this is going to be a high-scoring shootout between Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, we were all fucking hoodwinked. The Dallas Cowboys didn't score a single fucking touchdown. Field goal, field goal, field goal. That's it. And the Kansas City Chiefs didn't look all that great in that game either. Obviously, they ended up winning the game, but it wasn't a decisive win or anything. The Cowboys' defense looked good in that game. That was overall a shit show. I think the over-under in that game was 58, and there was like 20 points scored in the game. It was embarrassing. But at the end of the day, Michael Gallup does still look like he has that fire that he's had in him for his career for the Dallas Cowboys. So I do believe that if he is the number 1 or the number 2 wide receiver on the team, if CeeDee Lamb is back, then the value is immense going up against the Raiders. The Raiders are just a dumpster fire as well. They, every single year, start off on fire. And I feel bad for these Raiders fans because they always probably just have so much hope. Oh, Derek Carr, the Raiders, they look so amazing at the beginning of the season. And then by like game 4 or 5, after having a hot start to the season, maybe you're 3-2, maybe you're 4-1, and then eventually everything fucking crumbles like a cookie for the Raiders. And it's sad to see every single year because it's the same tale. It's the tale of greatness and then the tale of a complete and utter fall off the edge of the earth. So, in my opinion, this should be a great smash matchup for Michael Gallup, so I love him in this game. Next up, we move to Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Wide receiver of the Chicago Bears, going up against the Detroit Lions also on Thanksgiving. This is the kind of matchup where if you want to actually, talk to your family during Thanksgiving instead of just sitting on the couch like a fucking degenerate and watching all of the games, then this is the game to do it, because the Bears versus the Lions just reeks of a snooze fest. It seems unlikely that Justin Fields is the quarterback in this game because of that injury to his ribs, but at the end of the day, I think Mooney will be just fine with Andy Dalton under center. He has had now 2 games in a row of over 19 half PPR points. In week number 11 up against the Ravens, he had 5 receptions on 16 targets. This motherfucker almost had a 50% target share in the Chicago Bears offense last week for 121 yards, 5 receptions on 16 targets, 121 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Now imagine what he's going to do to the Detroit Lions. He is going to bend them over a table on the Thanksgiving feast, no less, and go to Pound Town. I love Darnell Mooney in this game, even with Andy Dalton. Next, we move to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the LA Rams this week. And what should be a very fun matchup, because I mentioned how the Bucs are a very good team in the NFL, like one of the only teams that I'm like, wow, that is a great team. It seems like they're going to be at the tippy top of the NFC. Same thing goes with the Green Bay Packers. Now, the biggest issue with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and why I am not just giving this guy the Gawk 9000, like I assume most people are going to be giving him after that great performance last week up against the Minnesota Vikings, is because I understand the issue with the Packers. The biggest issue with MVS and the other non-Devonta Adams wide receivers on the Green Bay Packers is that they are very hard to predict week in and week out. MVS was the guy last week up against the Minnesota Vikings, but to me, it doesn't seem like a lock that he is going to be the number 2 wide receiver this week up against the Rams. It could be Randall Cobb. It could be any of these other ancillary wide receivers on the team. It might be fucking Mercedes Lewis, who scores 2 touchdowns for the Green Bay Packers in this game up against the Rams, and it would not surprise me, because Aaron Rodgers doesn't just lock into one of these other wide receivers. He just airs the ball out, and then, if you don't have Devonta Adams, it's very hard to predict which wide receiver to start. So last week up against the Vikings, 4 reception on 10 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. That's great. but it is very hard to predict, like I'm saying, which wide receiver will be the number 2 guy behind Devonta Adams in this offense this week up against the Rams. You can start MVS. I do like the upside in this potentially being a barn burner, a very high-scoring game, but I would tell you to be a little bit cautious, to kind of temper your expectations, because we know what this situation is in Green Bay. Next wide receiver to discuss here is Cedric Wilson, wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, also going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Michael Gallup is just way above Cedric Wilson, in my opinion, on my thoughts on the wide receiver, because even when Cooper and CeeDee Lamb return, I can see a role for Michael Gallup in the offense, whereas Cedric Wilson now is like the wide receiver number 4. So with Amari Cooper out and CeeDee Lamb potentially missing the game like we talked about, this puts Cedric Wilson in a very good scenario to succeed, especially if CeeDee Lamb is out, because then Michael Gallup goes to number 1, and then Wilson will be the number 2 wide receiver on the team. Last week up against the Kansas City Chiefs, again, I'm not going to just harp on this game endlessly because the game did piss me off. 4 receptions on 7 targets for 36 yards. He is going to be involved if Lamb is out for sure. I think he's going to have a great role if Lamb is in. I'm still fine playing Cedric Wilson with the hopes that Dak Prescott and friends have a bounce-back game, they have a get-right game, and they fucking lay the absolute hammer on the Raiders defense. Final wide receiver to discuss, another wide receiver playing on Thanksgiving, and that is Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears, going up against the Detroit Lions. Again, this is a smash matchup even with Andy Dalton. It seems as though Allen Robinson may not play this week because he's dealing with a hamstring injury. He missed practice on Monday, I should say, and he did not play last week. If Allen Robinson is back, then you take Marquise Goodwin and fucking throw him out. You don't want anything to do with him. But if Allen Robinson is not back, then I could see a solid role for Goodwin for the second week in a row. Last week up against the Ravens, 4 receptions on 8 targets for 104 yards and a touchdown. Goodwin is fast as fuck. Godwin, his name is, I think I called him Godwin earlier. His name is Goodwin. That's Chris Godwin. So Marquise Goodwin. This dude is fast as fuck. Lightning McQueen off the line. Guy is very fast, like I'm saying, going up against the Detroit Lions. Could easily burn them. Again, if Robinson is back, pivot off this take. But if Robinson is not playing in this game, again, the game's on Thursday, didn't practice on Monday, then I like my chances with starting Marquise Goodwin this week up against the Lions. Final position to discuss in today's video is the tight end position, starting with Cole Comet, tight end of the Chicago Bears, going up against the Detroit Lions. Now, my favorite tight end pickup of the week was actually Adam Troutman, but Adam Troutman ended up, I believe, tearing his MCL and is out 4 to 6 weeks. What a tough scene, because Troutman was really starting to catch fire with the Saints. I was so excited to talk about him this week, and now we won't be talking about him probably for another 4 or 5 weeks, or maybe not at all, because the regular season will be already over by the time that Troutman returns, which sucks, obviously. I hope Adam Troutman has a healthy recovery. So Cole Kmet had a down game last week up against the Baltimore Ravens with just 1 reception on 2 targets for 12 yards, but in his last 4 games, he had eclipsed over 5 targets per game besides last week. The streaming tight ends this week aren't looking pretty. They aren't looking great. So there's a lot worse options than Comet. So go ahead and pick him up and hope he has a bounce-back game here in such a cupcake matchup up against the Lions. Final tight end to discuss in today's video, final player to discuss in today's video is Austin Hoopa, tight end of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, again, the tight end streaming options are very grim this week. They're not amazing. There is no, besides Comet, I'm not super confident in Hooper, but there's a lot worse options than Austin Hooper as well. Week 11 up against the Lions, 4 receptions on 7 targets for 53 yards. As of recently, we've seen a little bit less of the tight end by committee that the Cleveland Browns use, where they throw out 3 fucking tight ends every game, and you're just praying to the fantasy lords above that your tight end, the one that you end up throwing out there, ends up scoring a touchdown. So let's hope that this is Austin Hooper's week up against the Baltimore Ravens, because there are, again, a lot worse options than Austin Hooper on the week. If you guys have any questions on any of these players, maybe some of them not available, maybe some other players you're looking at on the waiver wire, let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to help you guys out down there. I love you guys all. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, complete.